Greetings, Earthlings. Welcome to episode 4 of season 4. If you have just joined, my name is Robin of Added Tired Witch on Instagram, and I'm joined by the beautiful, sensual, angelic Maria of Maria the Arcane on Instagram. And later this episode, we are joined by Laura Davila, the author of Mexican Sorcery, to talk about Brujeria de Rancho. So it's a great chat. Stick around. We enjoyed
it was such a good chat, so I highly recommend listening. And we have a kitchen witchery class this Saturday, February 25th. So if you can join, that would be great. But if you also want to see it at a later date, you can join our Patreon at any time after the 25th and see it just recorded. So
yeah, it'll be recorded, so you won't be able to ask questions if you can't make the class, but you can still get all the valuable information. And
I've seen Laurel's stuff that she has planned for the class, and it is amazing. There might be a bread making little thingy and making herbal infusions. Laurel's going all out. She's going cooking show with the kitchen witchery class. It's gonna be amazing. So
I'm so excited.
Please join.
If you've just joined us this episode, every single episode, we talk about upcoming lunar phases and how we can utilize those in our practice. The closest one to today's airing is going to be on March 7th. It is the full moon in Virgo, which is very exciting. I'm personally a major fan of Virgo moons, which is funny because I am... as a person, I'm very chaotic, but when it comes to my life, I'm very organized, which you would never think looking at my space. If you could see my house behind me right now, you'd be like, oh, okay, Robin.
You live with 2 other humans. I mean, in a bus, Robin.
Yeah, and a tiny home. But regardless, it's mostly the one little human that makes everything chaotic. But
preach.
But the full moon in Virgo is a really good time to utilize organization, creating any kind of, I was going to say organization again, but realistically list making to kind of facilitate your life to make it flow a little bit more evenly. Mm-hmm. It's a good time to do things like spring cleaning, getting your house in order. Actually, if you are a spellcaster this month, for the Patreon, Maria has something up her sleeve that would work perfectly for this full moon. Mm-hmm. It is just a really good moon to utilize things like getting our shit in order. Mm-hmm. If you're going to be using it magically, this would be a really good time to use magic for things like climbing chains at work. It's making sure that, the promotion chain is linear. Mm-hmm. This is a good time to do things like cleansing and clearing out your space, and a really good time to set realistic goals for yourself and do magic that is based around motivation to keep you on track for that. This isn't necessarily a moon that we're going to do big, air quote manifestations around, but it is a really good time to give ourselves really strong structural foundations to see ourselves to success.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. And I personally, I think I will be using this moon for the plans that I set at the beginning of the year to just kind of I've already started working on them. And so the full moon, I'm going to just put a little bit more oomph behind them. Maybe do the same, not the same spell that I did for the new moon for them, but just, continuing to feed it so it continues to grow into something larger. Just making that plan excel rather than slow down.
Yeah, but I love that.
Yeah. But I do agree with the whole planning aspect.
Planning.
Capricorn and Virgo for full moons are perfect for that stuff. So.
Plan.
Okay, so if you just joined us for this episode or haven't listened to the other episodes so far this season, in lieu of choosing a card and discussing it like we were doing previous seasons, we're instead going to concentrate on like whole sections in tarot, like the major arcana, the minor, and then move on to aces, ones, and so on. I think it would be very fun and helpful for people to understand tarot on a deeper level and to shake things up on the podcast a bit. But anyways, this week we're discussing our biggest thoughts on pentacles. Pentacles are typically shaped like coins, discs, or even fruit on tarot decks, mainly featuring a pentagram on them. And to me, that shows how connected like the earth is to like all elements, even spirit. Like you typically need something of earth to start a fire. You need something of earth to cradle water, and air moves through the earth. While we will get more into the topic of growth here in a second, to me, this interconnectedness shows that how growth is so integral to drive emotions and what we need to fight for. Now, pentacles relate to element of earth, like I said, which means we are dealing, when dealing with the suit, we are looking at how we grow externally, cultivating and nurturing that growth, stability, the material world, and even community. I equate pentacles with external growth. This can represent a job, a project, or goal that will have like real world impacts on your life and change how you interact with the world around you for better or for worse. The most crucial part of developing this external growth, which featured on Pentacle suit, is like nurturing and cultivation. We see this in cards like, but not limited to, the Seven of Pentacles, Eight of Pence, and all the court cards. They tell us how worthwhile our goals take, like how worthwhile goals take a while to cultivate and get things right, and how we need to focus on them in a balanced way. It's like, developing them into something more substantial. The Pence remind us that we deserve to be a little selfish at times when it comes to investing in ourselves. When we invest in ourselves correctly, we can be in better service to help others or even recognize our own self-worth. You can't speak about the Pence and earth without bringing up stability. Before we build up to anything, we need the earth underneath our feet, a solid foundation to build up from. This comes back to self-investment and also making sure that you are chasing goals that aren't on shaky grounds. We want to build up to something that will help you like leave a legacy, or something you've invested a lot of time and effort into that will continue to give back to you when you're all done with that particular goal, like we see on the 9, 10, and King of Pence. It also comes as no surprise that the Pence come up quite a bit when it comes to financial matters. They can show like the ebb and flow of finances and how many of us want to build up to something comfortable and hopefully leave a little bit for our families, or at least give them a comfortable lifestyle where they won't have to need for much. We see an ebb on the 5 of Pence, and we see financial success on the 10 of Pence. But the rest of the suit definitely tells us the story about financial investment and how we can personally add some like extra coins to our pockets. One of the biggest lessons that depicts that can be found on cards like the 7 and 8 of Pentacles, patience and being consistent. Last but not least, while we spoke about relationships and the cup suit the last episode, like Pence reminds us how important and like integral community is when it comes to our goals. We're so often told that, we should only count on ourselves, but the Pence shows us that many of us can't get much of anywhere when it comes to our growth if we don't have a little buildup of help. Whether it is discussing and ironing out details with knowledgeable people, as seen as on the 3 of Pence, or being invested in or investing in yourself by going to someone who provides a service to help you on your way to your goals, is seen on the 6 of Pence. That same card, the 6 of Pence, can show us how important it is when we reach a certain point where we can help, where we should help, like reinvest in our communities, definitely in a balanced way. but help out in a way to get other people's goals off the ground. So, Robin, how do you view the Pence?
I have literally nothing to add.
Oh.
That was really good. That was a really good coverage of Pence. Yeah, I've got nothing to add. The only thing I will add is that when you talked about the symbolism and how sometimes it comes up as coins, sometimes fruit, I've also seen it come up as rocks, stones, and I've also seen it come up like reoccurring as globes.
Literally, I like globes.
Yeah, literally using like little earths. Isn't that cool?
That is cute. I like that.
I like that too. As we talked about earlier in the episode, we have a very special guest today. We are joined by Laura, the author of Brujeria de Rancho. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
My name is Laura Davila. I'm the author of Mexican Sorcery, a practical guide to Brujeria de Rancho. I'm from Monterrey, Mexico. I emigrated here about 13 years ago. I was born and raised in Mexico, and I practice brujería, hechicería, and salmería, and a little bit of curanderismo. And right now I'm trying to promote my book and, let people know that is so many ways to practice magic within the Mexican spectrum of spirituality, not only one.
Yeah, well, so going off of that, for our listeners who maybe have no idea about anything like this, can you kind of describe to them what brujeria actually is?
Well, brujeria in the Latin sense can mean a lot of things. Just like the word witch have a lot of different nuances and like meanings to different people, we have the same thing in the Spanish language. For some people, a bruja could be somebody who practice, like magic and witchcraft in different ways, depending in the country that this person resides. I'm specifically from the northeastern part of Mexico, where we have this practice pretty much like divide in different ways. Like brujeria, as Brujeria de Rancho, is a way to connect with our ancestry, way to readdress balance and justice, a way to achieve things like we wouldn't be able without witchcraft, a way to balance like circumstances, because this practice was created by people struggling a lot, having a lot of social and political disadvantages compared to other groups who were probably living in the cities, who had less access to education, to justice, who had like not the same living conditions that other groups. They were like more vulnerable in some ways.
Yeah, all right. That I think that makes sense. I hope it makes sense to people listening. So going off that again, when were you first introduced to brujeria? Is this something that, was always around you, or did you kind of have a moment in your life where you registered it as a form of magic?
Well, I was lucky enough to meet all my grandmothers, not only like my mother's mom or my dad's mom. I was lucky enough to have my great grandmothers around. So with that being said, all of them have their own ways to practice magic. My grandma Diana used to make a living from amarres, hechizos, and from being a bruja, while my grandmother Socorro was more like a mystic side, where she had her beliefs and she only used these beliefs for her own family, for her own like small circle. So I had the two ways of the spectrum. My grandfather, on the other hand, he was a Rosicrucian. So he was a very spiritual person. He was a tarot reader, but he was more into like hide magic. So I have like a little everything from everyone. That's how pretty much I started since I was very young.
Well, that's great that you're surrounded by so much family who practice. A lot of people don't have that. So that'd have been amazing growing up with all that. So
I think that's something that a lot of people kind of wish they had.
Well, I think like that's another thing. Like here, when people like immigrate to the United States, like forget about that. But in Mexico, even if it's not to make a living out of it, everybody has that in some way, because you pretty much don't have an other option to believe in magic, because it's not like here, like where you have like a social security or access to things. Like, you know, I know like once you're like middle class, it's really hard to have like medical insurance, but if you're like to the really, really poor side, you have Medicaid, you have food stamps, you have a lot of things that we don't have over there. We don't have an unemployment insurance. You just get on it. You don't get unemployment. You get fucked. So you don't have other thing but your faith, and that faith is what at some point had to become magic in order to survive. Yeah. So I think I got very lucky because, you know, this was by one side of my family more professional in some way, because they were a business after all. But all of us as Mexicans have these, because the lack of the resources, we have to support ourselves or rely on something that is, you know, like a way to have like a parenting, like a something to hold on, a grip. So I think that's magic and witchcraft for a lot of Mexicans. That's why I think it's more common in Latin America than even here, because it's funny, like everybody says like, oh, have you noticed like everybody who's Mexican or Cuban or Puerto Rican has a grandma or a tia, or because of that, because I think like life circumstances, that's what it makes you a bruja, you know? So that's why it's more like common in like countries like mine to be more, you know, surrounded, if it's not by family, for people in your community who is very, very magical in some way.
Yeah. So a very like hot button topic in the community is, how do you explain the difference between Catholicism and folk Catholicism to someone unfamiliar with the practice?
Well, first of all, I will say like the two things are very like linked to each other. It couldn't exist one without the other. But specifically in Mexico right now, we have more like a cultural Catholicism than what people like believe in church. Like right now, we're like in a really like Catholicism crisis in Mexico. And not only because people is very disappointed on the clerical because of the pedophilia, you know, and things like that. It's just like they don't see like they see this clerical that they're so far away from social reality. So and I think people, at least in Mexico, the only thing that they have after all is our faith. We cannot quit our faith, but we can quit the dogma, the institution, the rule, you know. But our faith is something that makes us like keep going, you know. So, and it's funny because somehow I see like the Mexican people is like, okay, I love my faith, but I hate the church, and we're fine with that. But somehow here in the United States doesn't think that people cannot grasp that concept. Like they grasp like, oh, I'm very patriotic, I love my country, but I hate the government, I really despise the system, which is pretty much the same, but in this area. So I think fall Catholicism right now and in the last century has influenced more the Catholicism itself than Catholicism influenced the folk Catholicism, at least in Mexico. And this because, I don't know if you know, but we had a very recent war. I don't think it's even 100 years older, because it was around 1940 where we had the Cristero War. Where, if you were a priest, or you were a nun, or you were somebody following Catholicism, you will get fusilated. We have a lot of martyrs and priests who died during those years. And I think a lot of Brujeria de Rancho started in that way in a lot of states, because people start taking their altars to their privacy of their homes because they couldn't go to the church. And instead of be a man, a priest, giving away faith or imparting faith, it was our abuelas who were defending and who were passing on that faith. And this Cristero War lasted about 8 to 10 years. So, and it's funny because everybody thinks Mexico is obligating you to be Catholic. And I'm like, well, obviously they don't know Adolfo Díaz Calles, Lázaro Cárdenas, they were not Catholic. Benito Juárez was not a Catholic. A lot of our presidents of that in that time, they were actually agnostic or were Masones, who were totally against Catholicism. And that's how people started to developing this side of folk Catholicism more stronger. And when everything stabilized,
you're right.
So people just continue with those same teachings in that same way of practicing Catholicism. So yeah, I think at least in Mexico, folk Catholicism has influenced more the church at what we know as church today than the other way around, which is very hard to believe, but historically that's why.
Makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah. On the complete opposite end of the spectrum, we had a lot of questions. Well, we had some questions about a favorite herb, but more specifically, what is a staple in Mexican herbal magic that you think everyone should have in their pantry?
Well, that's a hard question because I think at least in Mexican magic it's a broad term. And that's something that I had trying to be very clear about, because that's one of the reasons why I wrote Mexican Sorcery, because I started seeing a lot of, this is the traditional way to make Mexican magic, and this is the Mexican way, and this is the authentic one. And I started okay, in what part of Mexico? It's just saying there is a traditional pozole. Yeah, maybe some people in the United States will be more familiar with the red pozole, but if they go in other parts of Mexico and they ask for a pozole, maybe they will get a green pozole, a white pozole, or a black pozole.
The best one is the green one. Okay. Well,
exactly.
I'll go on the record to state that the best one is green. And if you think otherwise, you're wrong. And I hate to say that for you. I really do. I hate to see it.
And that's something
super tasty.
If I have of course, I love the green one, but that doesn't mean that's the only authentical and traditional pozole.
Absolutely.
Another thing that I found funny, that I put the same example where, okay, all the pozoles have hominy. doesn't matter what because that's what makes pozole. If you want to take
that's core ingredient.
Yeah, if you want to take the folk Catholicism or brujeria, it's not brujeria anymore. No, at least not in the Mexican sense. You're practicing something else, but don't call it like that. Just like if you take the hominy out of the pozole, don't call it pozole, call it caldo, because it's a caldo. So with that being said, like when we talk about herbs, I personally come from the northeastern side of Mexico. There is a very desertic environment there. Even if you have a lot of mountains, these mountains is like if you go to the mountains in Arizona, you know? Yeah. So you have a specific like flora and fauna over there that you will not actually have in Veracruz or in Mexico City or in Yucatan. So a lot of these Mexican witches that they're like working their magic and their brujeria with certain ingredients and plants, they're not actually working with the same ones in other side of the country, because we're like huge and we're so different in flora and fauna. Like I can say like I love to work with Gobernadora, and somebody else, well, but I don't have Gobernadora here, and they're still in Mexico. So when I did Mexican Sorcery, I actually did like a chapter what is like, you know, it doesn't matter if where part of Mexico you're from. All of us are working with these herbs, you know, that you have in your pantry, that you have in your kitchen already. There are plants that you already have some kind of connection because they're around you all the time. Right. Let's focus not on what my ancestors used to work. Some of those they used to work, but let's, you know, make it to the point like everybody, even if you are in Europe or even if you're in other country, you have access to do these. Because otherwise I will be like how much we complain about capitalism. Imagine if I make you chip things that belong to other ecosystems, you know, and bothering those ecosystems. So, and I think like any kind of witchcraft, brujeria is really like earth-based. We have to have certain thing, like at least respect for those ecosystems. So for me, like I work a lot, like right now with rosemary. I work a lot with cinnamon, things that I have offhand. It doesn't matter if tomorrow I am in Michigan or I am Nevada or I am in South Dakota, you know. But I will say, like, of course, in Mexico, like I will say everybody works with rue, but here is so hard to get rue. Like,
go to Home Depot. Go to Home Depot. What?
I'm in Texas. They don't like.
Right. Because that's where I always go. Home Depot. They've always got it in the plant section for sale. Yeah. Like, you know, the outdoor garden section. I mean, you got to get it alive, but they do have it. Check your Lowe's, check your Home Depot. They sell it as an outdoor shrubbery.
Yeah. So I will say that. And just like I said, like, one of the reasons to make this book was to make everybody to feel like, hey, this is my way. But if your grandma taught you other way, probably your grandma was not living in the same specific area where I was.
Yeah.
So if she taught you something, a little, just adapt it. It's nothing wrong with that. You know, my way or my grandma's way is not the only way, because just like I said, we're not a monolith. We cannot be, because the ecosystem will not even allow us to be, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think it's, I completely agree. Working with native plants is so important to like preserving, and then also helping get rid of invasive plants by using them a lot in your practice.
Absolutely. So another hot button in our community is surrounded around the evil eye and things like appropriation and stuff like that. And in my growing up, we had mal de ojo for evil eye as well. It's the same thing. at least in my experience. So because we see this come up in other cultures, do you feel as though they are functionally the same thing as like the very popular Turkish evil eye, or are they a little different?
Well, I cannot talk for everybody. I can talk for the Mexican culture and how we end up with all these amulets and talismans and even beliefs around things like the evil eye, that even somebody can say, oh, it's not evil eye, it's not mal de ojo, it's malocchio. And probably all of us we're talking the same. You have to remember, and that's something that I tell them, like every time somebody said like, oh, but that's very alike what I do or what my grandma do, and I'm not Mexican and you're not Italian or you're not from Germany. You have to remember, like, the world has, I don't know how many thousands of years. And before these borders were other borders. And were other people conquering other realms and, So I think all like Romans, like Spain, Iberia, Germany, Italy, and all that area share a lot of the same like ideas and beliefs and superstitions. And yes, we as Mexicans have a lot of indigenous heritage, but we do have a lot of Iberian and Roman heritage. So we end up with the same, like beliefs in somehow, that we mixed after colonization with our first native ancestors have, because they believe in the evil eye too. So a lot of people ask me, why do I have it here, by the way, why did we end up with a ojo turco in a book like Mexican Sorcery? Well, you have to remember that we were conquered by Spain, but Spain was subjugated 800 years for the Moorish first. So the conqueror was conquered before, and it was like that for 800 years.
Yeah.
So the Moorish and the Arabs and the Turkish brought these to Spain, and then Spain brought it to us, or a lot of our indigenous different communities already believe in some kind of the same, and that's how we end up with this super strong belief in el mal ojo.
Yeah.
So that's why we end up with that in Mexican Sorcery. Just like the Mano de Fatima, there is like a lot of like historical context why in every botanica that you're going today, esoteric shop in Mexico or even in the United States, you're going to see the Hamsa as a Mexican thing, which we adopted because of our like cultural and spiritual ties with these cultures that settled, and at the same time like interchange at some point beliefs and superstitions and religion. So yeah.
So really, at the end of the day, we have the Romans to blame for everything. I'm really glad that we're all on the same page about that. I'm so glad they're dead. I'm just kidding. That was a joke.
People in Rome are like, ma'am.
I meant ancient Romans, for the record. The ones that did the marching with the spears, okay?
Marching with the spears.
They did. You know that like a lot of Europe, their roads are designed around Roman marching.
Yeah, actually in Germany, we still had Roman roads, Roman gates, and all that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Not to get off topic, but yeah.
That's why I laugh. That's why I laugh, because we want to like difference each other from each other. Like me, like a Mexican, my family has centuries living in the same area of Mexico, and my husband is third generation American, but his family is from Germany.
Mm-hmm.
But all of like he has a lot of beliefs that they're very like similar, like mine.
Mm-hmm.
Like let me tell you, like in like New Year's, he likes to clap a lot and make a lot of noise so all the bad spirits go. And I'm like, in el rancho, we take out of the guns, and so the noise. But it's a Roman thing. But it's the same. He likes to make a lot of noise so all the bad vibes and bad spirits go away on New Year's, and I do the same. And we were like, that's weird. Yeah, because at the end of the day, we're like so far away, like, and like related to each other. And just like Maria said, like, we do this in Germany.
Right.
It's the same thing. And nobody is appropriating anything. We just belong to the same place at some point.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So. Yeah. So we have time for one more question. So without ruining your book, what's one thing you think all people should keep in their back pocket to protect themselves from hexes or jinxes?
That's a good one. Well, depending. I think if you ask me what I will choose in my book for my community, which is, I think, a really target community to get hate intolerance and racism is one that it talks about an amulet a remedy that talks about San Martin de Porres. San Martin de Porres was a saint who was a mulato, a mestizo, a mixed person who wanted to go to college to study, but he couldn't because of the color of his skin. He was the son of an African woman, an African Panamanian slave that then after was not a slave because she had a son with a Spaniard noble, and they had this baby, but he couldn't like do a lot of things like his sister, because her sister was like white passing while he was more like into the dark side. So he dealt with a lot of discrimination, and I think that's something that we as Latinos, as women, as queer people deal a lot, so that's what I will say, like the San Martin Porres broom, and that's what I would recommend, for everybody.
I love that. So before we leave, can you just remind our listeners where they can find your book and where they can find you on social media, please?
It's Daphne La Hechicera. That's my social media. You can find me like that.
Which will be linked in the description.
The book, you can find it everywhere. I really recommend to get it from local botanicas because they need our support to survive. And I have a Twitter, I have a TikTok, and that's it. The only thing that I would like to add for especially the Mexican American community is this, and it's something that I would like somebody to tell my great grandchildren when I'm not here. Immigration is an act of love. I know you sometimes can feel disconnected, uprooted, like set apart, or the feeling of not belonging, but somebody 3, 5, 4 generations ago crossed the border for you. Even if you were not even here yet, that person was already loving you, for you to have a better life, to give you a better future. So just know that you're loved, and the fact that you're here is because somebody else risked their own life, leave their own parents, probably their dead people behind, just for you and to give you a better life. Embrace who you are. Embrace every side of who you are. And I think that's the best way to to honor our ancestry, to honor our ancestors.
I love that. So, Maria, what's stirring your cauldron?
Let me tell you. So I'm currently in the process of removing all traces of winter from my home, and it has gave me the itch to refresh my altars, in particular with like how they look and like cleaning them with special waters I make. And I completely revamped my divination altar, which if you follow me on social media, you've probably seen this change. I'm just so happy with how it turned out. My biggest gripe with how it was decorated before is that I didn't have much room for larger spreads or even to journal. And I've redesigned it in a way that not only can it handle those things, but it doesn't look bare, which is what I was most worried about. It's one of those times where the vision I had in my head and how I wanted it to look turned out how it did. So I can and I really want to redo my altar, like all my other altars, in particular the altar that I have that features the triangle shelf. Once again, if you're on my social media, you've probably seen it.
You're familiar.
But other than that, I also like have a plan to sometime this year make a Hecate altar outside my front door, and also like start nurturing my Hestia altar on a new antique table that I got while thrifting. So yes, redoing all the altars and just giving them kind of like a little glow up.
I love that.
Thank you.
I think that's nice. I've seen the divination redo, and I really like that.
Thank you. The little cicada earrings that you got me, I put them on there because they're really cute.
Oh, I like that.
Know.
Yeah, I'm really good at giving gifts, guys.
Yeah, Robin is.
It's true. It's probably the best thing I'm good at. You know what I mean?
Humble. Very humble.
Well, also very hot. So, I mean, again, we're circling back to all my positives.
So, Robin, what is not stirring your cauldron this week?
Thank you so much for asking.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
I am so sick and tired of winter. I'm sick of it. I want winter to piss off. I am over it. You know, it is almost March. Snowed last night. Snowed. Stop it. Cease. Enough. I'm done. It is currently 24 degrees out, or -5 Celsius for our non-American listeners. I would like to die. I'm so over it. I hate winter. I really do. Like, I was not made for snow. We moved here, and I thought that I thought when we moved here that I liked snow. Do you know what I mean? Because my only experience with snow was like on holiday. And now I'm like, get it away from me. It's cold. I'm freezing. I don't no. You know that sound on TikTok that's like, man, I'm a male. I'm a he. I'm not into that mentally ill stuff. Do you know that sound?
No.
First of all, hilarious sound. I'll find it and send it to you. Secondly, how I feel about it is like, no, it's snow. I hate it. Get it out. I'm not into that cold, wet shit. I just hate it. I hate it so much.
Fair. That's fair. Like, I'm fine with snow if it's like only during the holidays and then it's done. And then it's great.
It didn't even snow here at Christmas. So I'm like, enough. We're done. Christmas is over. The holidays are over. Valentine's over.
Well, you want to hear something that'll make you mad?
Yeah.
It's 82 degrees here today.
Suck my ass. Like, honestly, I'm begging for that kind of weather again. And the thing is that like, I am from the Bay Area. I'm from San Francisco. It's cold there. It's the Bay. It's cold. It's foggy, but it is not snowy. And I don't mind being cold. Okay. Within reason.
Yeah,
give me like a 45 degrees chilly. I'm like, brr, it's 45, a little nippy out. Not like, if I put my bare foot on the ground, I will get frostbite, I'm over it. I'm so over it. I'm ready for spring, like real spring, not like the spring last year where it snowed in May, like real spring.
That's fair. I hope you get it. I hope you
Thank
get
you.
it.
If you've just joined us this week, every single week we talk about creators that we are loving right now. This could be shops, artists, photographers, bloggers, YouTubes, podcasts, just anything that we have found that we think is a pretty freaking neat. So that being said, Maria, who are you into this week?
I am into, okay, I've already kind of like hyped this in a previous episode, but it was before I received it, and I was just super excited about it. But I have received it now, so I can hype it even more. Okay, so I wanted to talk about the Love Oracle of Eden. It's an oracle deck that is stunning. The photography is done by the Togfather on Instagram. I'm not sure if they have a TikTok or anything, but it is so beautiful and so diverse and gorgeous. And like, if you've seen the Togfather stuff, it's like classic paintings that feature like angels and stuff like that. But, you know, the deck has very, very queer cards, which is very nice to see and very beautifully done. And oh my gosh, the edges are like this matte, like dusty rose. I've never seen that on the deck before, and it's just really
dusty
beautiful.
Rose?
Yeah, like a dark dusty
really
rose.
Nice.
It is, but I highly recommend looking it up and getting it because it is beautiful. Even the opening process was beautiful. They did a great job on the deck. So, who you been loving?
So Llewellyn sent me a box, and I mean, I know that you've gotten boxes from Llewellyn before too, like care package boxes. Do you know the ones I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And typically, like the ones I get, I'll be honest, are really not my thing. It's not that they're not cute. It's just like I'll get like those kind of care packages for stuff that like is nothing that has to do with my wheelhouse. So I'm like, well, this was really cute, but thank you, but I don't know what you want me to do with this. But this week I got one from them with the new book. It's called Tarot in Love. And it's by Dr. Elliot Adams, who I'm a huge fan of already. He's done 2 other books, I think, for Llewellyn that are all tarot based, and they're really good. And this particular package I got was so cute. It came with like the 1909 like reprint of the Rider-Waite-Smith, and like the book is like nice. It's really nice. I haven't read it fully in yet, but like the bits I have read, I'm like, I love this. I'm obsessed. So I'm super jazzed on it. Like actually so jazzed, I can't wait to like crack into it.
Oh,
I really like his work though in general.
I want to read it too. I've seen it at stores and it does look really good.
It's really cute. I'm really vibing it. And Elliot in general is somebody that I really respect as a like fellow professional tarot reader. I just really like his perspective on things in general. And I don't know, I just like it. And so I'm very excited to see kind of the deep dive on it from a love perspective. I think it's going to be great. So I'm very excited.
So we have one more pick.
I was gonna say, we also have the listener pick. So who is it?
It is Native House Ceramic Co. on Instagram. And of course it's ceramics. And so they have like really cute like coffee mugs and stuff like that. And I highly recommend like looking them up because it's really pretty and gorgeous.
Yeah, I love this. The dice. Do you see the dice?
I didn't see the dice.
Oh my gosh. It was posted on January 9th. So cool stoneware dice. I would have never thought of that.
Neither.
I don't think that would hold up in a gambling casino, but you know what? Very cool regardless.
I brought my own dice. It's made of clay.
It's not weighted or anything. Trust me.
But no, the stuff is stunning. And I like how, like, I don't know, like bare bones it is. It's not like overly painted like a bunch of, you know, places.
Almost. Yeah. I love it.
But yeah, if you want to send us your choices, I usually try to post on Instagram, like, tell us your picks. So keep an eye out and
but you
tell
can
us
also
your
just
favorites.
DM us directly. We will remind you though that just because you send us something doesn't mean we're going to share it for certain. We're going to do our best to share as many as we can, within reason, of course. So yeah, just even if you don't hear your share get posted, it's not because we don't like it necessarily. It just means we probably didn't get to it. So keep sending us your stuff. We're so excited. Thank you all so much for joining us today. We hope that we will see you again on Friday, March 3rd for our Coffee Talk episode, or on March 10th for our 5th episode of Season 4. You can keep an eye out on our social media, or you can just go straight to coffeeandcauldrons.com to find out more information, as well as links to all of the social media. Don't forget to join us on Patreon February 25th for author Laurel Woodward for a class on kitchen magic for the library tier and up. If you cannot make the class but you would like to watch it, it will be available recorded a few days after the class indefinitely on Patreon.
And additionally, our Patreon Magical Beginnings offers our special 25-minute part 2 episode, a huge library of articles about witchcraft, a Discord community full of fun events and discussions.
So many events.
We have like a spell of the month and a book club and a group meditation, the class, and like so many things. A
monthly hangout that you just started.
Oh yeah, we did just start that, didn't we?
Yeah.
This month has lasted forever, just like January. So, and we even have a tier that offers one-on-one conversations with Robin and myself.
Yes. So please, if you love our sexy, sensual, beautiful voices, take a moment to review us on whatever streaming service that you are tuning in from, such as Apple Podcasts or Spotify. We love reading your reviews, and rating us with 5 stars helps us to be seen by others. Thank you to everybody who already has and everybody who will rate us. We appreciate you very much.
And again, this is Coffee and Cauldrons
with Robin from At a Tired Witch on Instagram.
And I'm Maria from @Maria the Arcana on Instagram. You ready?
All right, ready?
1, 2, 3.